welcome to Getting Your Money's Worth, the show that focuses on value. I'm Judith West, host, and our guest today is Dr. Marc Bernstein, educational consultant and former superintendent of schools in Valley Stream, New York. Hi, thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Right. Okay, the show is called Getting Your Money's Worth, and you talk about money in education. Mm-hmm. Right. In fact, you wrote a letter to the editor commenting on the budget in New York State having to cut money from different districts. Is a good education, Getting Your Money's Worth asked the question, has started out asking the question, how much money do we have to spend for kids to get a good education? Have you ever been able to answer that question, Marc?
No. It comes down to what do the kids need based upon the opportunities you want to provide them. I think most of us believe that the purpose of education is to give kids a basic education, but also to expose them to so many different things so they can choose what it is that they're good at, what they enjoy, and to give them opportunities to lead a productive adult life. And it's hard to quantify that in the real world.
Yes.
But on the other hand, we do spend money.
A lot.
A lot.
We spend close to our defense budget we spend on education.
We spend a lot of money. And the question becomes one, how do we make it effectively and efficiently spent? Right. That to me is the basic question.
Yes, and that's the question that we ask. Particularly, you talk about cutting to poor districts, and I want to get into that. But there are a lot of poor districts on the Eastern Seaboard. I mean, I can think of a couple right off the top of my head. Newark, New Jersey, that spend a lot, and their production. I mean, their productivity of that money begs a lot of good questions. It's not so efficient. Kids don't graduate, or when they do, they may not know that much anyway. So. How much is enough?
Well, let me take it from a different point of view.
Okay.
All right. The most important part of an education is the effectiveness of the teacher.
Yes.
If you have a really good teacher, the amount of money spent on a lot of peripheral things become very, very secondary. If you have an ineffective teacher, you can spend millions of dollars and the youngsters are not going to learn anything at all. All right? So one of the things that I've been reading about, writing about, talking about is how do you help teachers to be as effective as possible? And there are answers to this, but our system of governance does not permit the answers to be put into action.
That's a pity.
We have one of the most fragmented decision-making processes you can possibly design in New York State. Can I give you a few examples?
Sure. Absolutely.
First of all, we have over 700 school districts. We don't need that number of school districts. There are certain economies of scale.
Yes.
That could result if there were consolidation of school districts.
It's called mergers in the business world.
Mergers, consolidations in education. Right. Yet the politics of education does not allow it to happen on any level. Another part of it is that in New York, the governor is not responsible for education, as he is in Connecticut or in New Jersey. There is a board of regents, a number of people not appointed by the governor, but by the legislature. Therefore, the governor is not accountable for education. Who is accountable?
The legislators?
No, because they individually don't make any decisions. They appoint 17 people, I think it is 15 or 17 people, who are the members of the board of regents.
Who nobody knows.
As I say, do you know any of them by name?
I know a few because I'm involved in education, but I would venture to say
the average parent doesn't, the average taxpayer doesn't.
No.
So the state creates mandates.
And we don't vote for those board of regents.
Not at all.
So if we don't like what's happening, we don't have a vote.
They're appointed by the joint meeting of the Assembly and the Senate. And therefore, if the Democrats are in charge in an overwhelming number, they appoint all the members of the Board of Regents. If it were the Republicans, it'd be the same thing. But the key thing is, no one's accountable.
No, and we don't have a vote.
And we don't have a vote. Now, if the governor were the one responsible, as governor is in most states, if you don't like what's happening, get rid of him. And New York City is a good example. Here, you now have mayoral control. And there are people who agree or disagree, but at least you know who's responsible and accountable, and therefore if you don't like it, you can get rid of them. So there's a fragmented governance structure, fragmented number of school districts, fragmented decision-making processes, and that's why education, to me, is very inefficient.
Yeah, and also, but I want to say to my teacher, there is this thing called tenure, which interferes.
Well,
Does it not?
I have mixed feelings about tenure. I believe that there should be tenure, but I would have it renewable tenure. Okay? Right now is a 3-year probationary period, and the vast majority of people who start off teaching get life tenure after 3 years. And unless they did something unethical or horrendous, all right, they never lose their tenure. There's been a revolt against that, truly has, across the country. Now, I would not want to have teachers totally at the prey of whimsical administrators or school board members or even the public. So people who are teachers have to have some protection. On the other hand, what's wrong with every 5 years, for instance, there being a review of how well that teacher's students have performed in comparison to students in comparable schools, meaning schools where the kids come from similar families, similar backgrounds, similar economics. And you will see differences. The research is very clear. Kids who have good teachers are light years ahead of kids who have year after year of ineffective teachers.
Which also then, Mark takes us to this point that, you know, teachers are fairly or unfairly a pretty maligned group these days. These days. I used to teach for a living, and I must tell you, when I taught, I don't want to give away my age, but when I went outside and crossed the street to buy my lunch, there was a real show of respect. The parents respected teachers, and the kids respected. A much higher level of respect. And talk about an efficiency. Shouldn't there be a way that, I mean, in any other industry on planet Earth, folks who are better at their jobs make more money. In any, you know, get more respect.
Well,
I mean, why is that piece of human initiative taken out of the teaching profession?
Because of unionism, and there's a big purpose for unions. I would not do away with unions, but when you have a union, you have the defense of the least common denominator.
Right.
And that does not always work in the favor of kids and good education.
In fact, sometimes I'm beginning to think that it works strongly in disfavor.
Well, I think in cases it does, which is why there is a national revolt going on, and certain states are handling it one way, certain states another way.
Parents are fed up. They want better. They want their kids to be better educated. Employers are fed up.
Definitely.
I mean, the public really is fed up with this,
but see,
this
Judith,
behemoth called education.
This goes back to my remark that we have such a fragmented system that change cannot take place.
Right.
All right? If we had the governor responsible for education, at least there's someone accountable. If we had fewer school districts, there'd be greater efficiency. Right? And just think, I'll use Long Island, which I know best. There are 125 school districts on Long Island.
And you were superintendent of one of them.
I was superintendent of two different ones over 20 years. Right? So now you have 125 employers competing for the same teaching pool. You have 125 teacher negotiations going on every 3 or 4 years. So therefore, you bid up the price in order to get the right teacher, because you have to be competitive, right? And as with most negotiations, you ratchet up the benefits. In addition, teachers don't have to negotiate their pension benefits with the school district. That's determined by the legislature. In the private sector, pension is one of the big negotiating points. Yeah? Again, this is not to take away what a teacher should make in salary, because I think a teacher who is effective is worth his or her weight in gold.
Frankly, I think teachers are the most important people in our society.
After parents, definitely.
I mean, what else?
I agree. I agree. Again, my plan is that you do away with lifetime tenure. Instead, what you have is a 5-year, not 3-year probationary period. So you start off by giving teachers on year 1 a very nice entry-level salary. Don't raise their salary for the next 4 years by more than the cost of inflation increase. Right? Then if they get a tenure or renewable license or a job, give them a nice boost in salary. Give them 5-year renewals. During the 5-year period, minimal increase in salary. But if they are relicensed or recertified or give an extension of their tenure, give them a nice boost so that over time, those who are really good will get good money.
Exactly, and perhaps a bonus for performance somewhere.
Well, I think that's built into that 5-year review.
Right, exactly.
Okay?
So tell me something. What you just said, frankly, is what most industries do in this country.
Right.
People have a starting salary, they perform, they get a little bit of an increase, they get some encouragement, they get promoted. Some one bypasses the other.
But that doesn't happen in union environments.
But this doesn't
in the
happen.
private sector.
But we can't get anything like this across in education.
But it goes back to, I think, the concept of the union versus non-union.
But how is it that something so logical just can't happen when the taxpayers, this goes back to the and the parents, the customers who pay, and the students and the students who are the customers, how is it that their influence is not strong enough about that whole body to...
Have you ever heard of lobbying?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
So who's not lobbying?
The New York State United Teachers, called NYSUT, is probably either the first or one of the 2 most significant lobby groups in New York State in terms of spending money to support candidates' parties, all right? And also, they have wonderful, effective call banks at election time. And therefore, the political leadership responds to lobbies in general, all right, to unions in general, because they're organized people.
So what do we have to do, organize parents?
Exactly. Exactly.
Or organize the payers.
Okay.
Taxpayers.
That's the case.
That's the history of the United States.
Case. Or you have some courageous political leaders, governmental officials, who say, hey, we've got to do the right thing, and we're going to do the right thing.
Right, and they become more transparent. Well, we can go on. I must say, your proposals are interesting, and you are consulting now.
Yes.
So I hope you have some ears that are listening to you.
One wonders.
Anyway, how long have you been out of? You were superintendent for.
I was superintendent for 21 years. I just retired this past December.
Okay. Well, it was a pleasure having you on the show. I thank you for coming on. And I want to thank everyone for watching, getting your money's worth. We just spoke with Dr. Marc Bernstein, educational consultant, former superintendent of schools in Long Island, New York. And he's got some pretty good ideas for some change in education, which is the buzzword these days, right? Yes. Thanks for watching.